My ninth lesson is that I don't think that developing countries have to follow our disastrous path with a kind of steady increase in deaths from heart attack and stroke over many decades before they begin to come down. I'd like to think that there may be ways in which they can leapfrog our failures. And whenever this conversation comes up, we have conversations about the mobile phone. Those of you that have been recently in rural India or rural Bangladesh or sub-Saharan Africa will know how extraordinarily available mobile phones are. So there isn't a necessity to lay wires all across Africa. That just doesn't need to happen. So it's a perfect example of a leapfrog technology. Well, do we have examples within healthcare? Well, I think potentially policies on tobacco control, instead of spending years and years arguing about increasing taxation or creating bans on smoking in public places, poorer countries can learn from the experience of richer countries and move into that much faster, and to some extent that's happening with the Framework Convention, although I must say I was in Pakistan recently and everywhere I look I see people smoking, and cigarettes are extraordinarily cheap, and there are 120 different forms of oral tobacco. So this problem is by no means solved, but at least it's a potential example. Perhaps avoiding the westernization of diets. When you go to these countries, increasingly you see McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken, and traditional diets are being abandoned for Western diets. Could that process be halted? And promoting physical activity. Here I think we have the wonderful example of Agita Mundo. One of the people on our advisory committee is Victor Matsudo, who has been one of the creators of Agita Mundo, whereby in Latin American countries the roads are closed on Sundays so that people can exercise, and there are all kinds of interventions to get the world moving. And a lot of that happened in Latin America is now spreading to certainly here in London. We've had an example of the roads being closed and people being encouraged to cycle down Whitehall and through Parliament Square. So I think it's an example of something that we can perhaps avoid making the same mistakes that we've made in the West.